I wanted to transition now to my Steelers, who have been in the news for the last 24 hours or so. So last night, I got the news. I was actually like in the bathroom, and then my phone goes off. And I look down, it says that the Steelers have traded for DK Metcalf. I'm like, this is great. And we could show you what DK Metcalf. Well, obviously, we understand the physical traits, and he's just a freak of nature from an athletic and physical standpoint. But we could show you in terms of production. I knew he was consistent. I knew he was an excellent player. I didn't know he was, from a consistency basis, off to a historically great start. Show DK Metcalf's numbers. Averages about 1,100 yards per year, 77 catches, 8 touchdowns. That's all great. DK Metcalf's the second player in NFL history to have 900 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns in his first 6 seasons. The other is a man I believe to be the second greatest receiver of all time, Randy Moss. Now, I'm in no way saying DK Metcalf's Randy Moss are going to finish with the career Randy Moss has had, but that's the only guy who's in the same ballpark as DK as it pertains to those two individual statistical categories. So this is obviously a great deal for Pittsburgh for a number of reasons. Number one, you establish a clear, and I'm not sure if the other guy's going to like it, a clear and obvious number one target. When the Steelers offense on the field, defense knows, okay, Metcalf's the biggest threat. Because this is a guy who's done it. This is a guy who's been consistent. This is a guy who's been healthy. This is a guy we got to worry about. This is a dude who is, I think a couple of years ago, he had a touchdown against the Cowboys where he hit like 22 miles an hour. He's a burner. He's a physical threat in terms of throwing up the ball and him going up and getting it. That's who DK Metcalf is. He is the number one receiver. George Pickens is the number two. And what it does, too, is, listen, I'm sure DK might take it potentially upon himself to try and mentor Pickens. Will Pickens listen? I have my doubts. And people talk about, the crash outs on the sideline with Metcalf and Pickens. Metcalf gets ticked off on the sidelines. Pickens, I talked about this in January, is a freaking psychopath on the sidelines. He's threatening fans. He's not talking to his quarterback. He gives weird answers in the locker room after games. DK Metcalf, by and large, consummate professional. There's really no difference in DK and most number one receivers. They're really this side of Terry McLaurin, who doesn't seem to cause any drama in Washington, is that he's going to make clear, I want the ball in my hands. And so this establishes a hierarchy. This establishes the fact the Steelers have a true number one. And by the way, they gave him a 5-year, $150 million contract. That part is because we know DK wanted a contract. Seahawks didn't want to pay him, so they traded into the Steelers. That part is significant for this reason. Haven't we lamented the fact, I being one of these people, over the last however many years that the Steelers have been number one in terms of spending on defense? And by the way, like not spending really any money at all relative to their spending on defense on offense. The fact that most of their star players have been draft picks who they usually just let walk. Najee Harris they're going to let walk. Obviously you moved on from, what's my man's name? Deontay Johnson. You moved on from Chase Claypool, moved on from Antonio Brown, you moved on from Antonio Holmes. Like that's kind of, the Steelers are a defense hit you in the mouth, and that's fine. But it's an offensive league. It's a quarterback's league. And boy, does that transition me now into what I'm going to say next. Reports, most notably by that of Adam Schefter, obviously the lead guy at ESPN in that regard, have stated that now Aaron Rodgers, the Steelers have been trying to keep Justin Fields. The Jets are interested in Justin Fields. Right now, Justin's in Dubai. I guess he's on vacation. He's making a decision on where he wants to play. I'm fine with bringing Justin Fields back. Just go through bridge year, draft a quarterback in 2026. Or unless you like a Riley Leonard or something like that, if Riley Leonard falls in the third round, I'm okay with taking a guy like that there. There's been plenty of franchise quarterbacks, not that you should necessarily bank on it, but plenty of franchise quarterbacks have gone third round or later. The Steelers reportedly, according to Adam Schefter, are looking at Aaron Rodgers, which makes no logical sense in any way, shape, or form. So you mean to tell me that the Steelers have, or at least had, he's a free agent himself, Russell Wilson, had a veteran, previous Super Bowl champion. Now, Russell certainly did not hit the highs Aaron hit in terms of individual accomplishments, MVPs. Russell's none. Aaron has 4. So we understand that. But Russell was an elite player at his peak. Russell, for all my critiques of him in the past, seems to have matured as a leader. He, by the way, now with the trade of DK Metcalf, let's see. Did they play together? I could have sworn they did play together in Seattle. So you already have that institutional connection there. Russell knows the playbook. And by the way, Aaron's older. Aaron is going to be more expensive than Russell was last year. Probably more expensive than Russell Wilson is going to be this year. Why not just stick with the vet you got now, who, by the way, again, for Russell's faults, Denver humbled him, I think. He's not really going to be a distraction outside of the locker. That's just not. Meanwhile, you have a guy who we know is obviously football is not number one on his priority list in terms of his focus, which you kind of have to be as an athlete, or at least if you want to continue to play at this level. And is going to go on McAfee every Tuesday, spout off who knows what about God knows what, and is going to continue to be a poor leader. He's going to demand excellence from everybody else, but not put those same practices into measure himself. Why do the Steelers want to do this? He's old, going to be more expensive than Russell Wilson would be, doesn't know the playbook like Russ, doesn't have the connection with DK Metcalf like Russ, and doesn't move as well as Russ. Russell doesn't move as well as he used to, but Aaron's a dang statue in the pocket at this stage of his career. By the way, we saw Aaron Rodgers last year with a below-average offensive line. Wasn't very good. Have you seen the Steelers O-line? It's probably the weakness of their entire football team. D-line's great. Linebackers are good. Secondary's really good. Kicker's awesome. Receivers now really strong. You've got talent in the run game, but it can't necessarily produce because of the guys up front. And now Aaron's going to deal with that. By the way, against the likes of a guy who just re-signed, we'll talk about later, Myles Garrett, against the Ravens defense, against Cincinnati. Anyone can carve that defense, but the AFC North defensive division. Aaron is now, should he sign in Pittsburgh again? Maybe he has signed in Pittsburgh. For the record, this show's not live. This is recorded at like 12:30 in the afternoon right now. He is a distant third on the best quarterbacks in that division. Folks, if Kirk Cousins were to sign in Cleveland, I'd probably give Aaron the edge because of how awful Kirk was at the end in Atlanta. It's not by a landslide because we know it's Lamar and Burrow back and forth. People have strong opinions on that. And then it's a distant third. At this point, I'm iffy on the Steelers going after Sam Darnold because I think Sam Darnold has Sam Darnold has as ideal of a spot last year in Minnesota as you could possibly have. And he melted at the end of the year in the two most important games for Minnesota, the get the 1 seed game against the Lions and the playoff game against the Los Angeles Rams. Now you can bang on the O-line, which, by the way, the Steelers O-line isn't very good, but Sam's young. Sam has corrected some of the errors that he had with the Jets as it pertains to reckless football. Sam has now played some big games, so maybe there's experience there. Do I think Sam would necessarily be the franchise quarterback long-term Pittsburgh? Don't really think so. But if the Steelers want to say, you know what, we don't necessarily think Sam's the guy. We don't even necessarily think Justin Fields is going to be the guy long-term. We're going to maybe draft somebody mid-round this year. We're going to have a veteran quarterback, another bridge year. It's going to be average. It's going to be classic Mike Tomlin. No losing season, and they get steamrolled in the playoffs from the first quarter on, and then we draft a guy next year. Then why wouldn't you just keep Russell Wilson? The guys in the locker room like Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson knows the playbook. Russell Wilson has a connection with DK Metcalf. Russell Wilson's less expensive than Aaron, moves better than Aaron, is certainly less of a distraction than Aaron. It's younger than Aaron. And the Steelers want to try out a guy who has not been elite that's now been 4 years, who has not won a playoff game in 5 seasons. And that's going to be their potential option. It makes no logical sense in any way, shape, or form. And it would be an abomination if the Steelers make this move. There's no other way around it. If your whole entire plan is to keep a bridge quarterback, just keep Russ. Aaron's not the guy. Aaron's not going to make you contend. Aaron is, dare I say, Aaron at this stage, you may not even be a playoff team with Aaron. It's not a very good idea. And if the Steelers do it, can't say I'll necessarily be shocked. Because if one thing the Steelers are seemingly content with at that position in the last 5 years, it is mediocrity in its highest form. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.